Alright man, so the 10 best farmable artifact sets in Raid Shadow Legends. Let's get things started with a few honorable mentions, starting with of course the Lifesteal set, which is absolutely crucial to have equipped on your campaign farmer when you are still in the early game of your account and you're really just getting started. However, you will eventually be farming campaign like this. You're eventually going to have a campaign farmer built out that basically one-shots their way through all of the waves in campaign 12.3 on Brutal, and it's just extremely efficient, and as you can see there is no need at all to have the Lifesteal set equipped on your campaign farmer once you get to this stage in roughly like the mid game of your account, when you can build out a champion like Bellower or Fellhound. And so while Lifesteal is absolutely crucial when you're just getting started, it does fall off very dramatically as you exit the early stages of your account. The second honorable mention is going to be the Toxic set. This is one of those sets that you can equip on very specific champions, such as Vrask, who are actually showing off over here, who just has a lot of self-heal built into his kit. And so you can equip a champion like Vrask in a Toxic set, and then as long as he is fast enough and has enough health, you can completely solo very annoying bosses that you would otherwise get stuck on in things like Doom Tower with the likes of Vrask. As such, this is one of those sets that really it's good to have like one good set, maybe a couple of good sets of a Toxic set. Besides that, you're not going to be prioritizing it a whole lot, but it is worth holding onto some good pieces, especially with speed, for future case uses like Vrask. A similar thing can also be said for the Regeneration set, right? It's a little bit more used even than the Toxic set, of course. Honestly, the Regeneration set is so good, it could honestly appear in the top 10 list, but I'm going to put it in the honorable mentions because it is just a little bit more niche, and again, it's going to be used on those champs that like to solo content or whose only job it is to be alive to like revive stuff during a fight or during like a cheese strat and stuff like that. And lastly, for the honorable mentions, I will throw the Relentless set into this as well. It's an 18% chance to just get an extra turn, which is great, and this can proc multiple times. However, consecutive chances will be reduced by 45%. And I think the Relentless set is unique because just depending on how the stat rolls go, I don't think there's even a champion in the game where Relentless is just a bad set. Like, Relentless is kind of just good everywhere. It's an amazing catch-all set, and particularly excels on champions that give themselves an extra turn because they can proc an extra turn off of the extra turn, you know, so Relentless is fantastic. The reason I'm including it here is because technically, it's a free farmable set by winning tournaments, and that gets harder and harder to do the later into the game your account gets. So especially if you're a beginner watching this video, maybe your account's like level 50 or level 60 or whatever, and you're still in the lower brackets of tournament, you might just want to pick a tournament every now and again that you absolutely blast, try and finish second or first place in something like a dragon tournament or whatever, and get your hands on some legendary or mythical Relentless gear while you can, because these tournaments get harder and harder to win the deeper into Raid you go. And hey man, for any new players watching this video looking for a clean start, or for any experienced veterans looking to create a new alt account like a free-to-play adventure, make sure you do so by clicking on my beginner promo link down below at the top of the video description box. Click that link after signing out of Clarion Play, and you're going to start off your new account with 4 free epic champions. You'll get Ugo on sign up, Fane at account level 40, Romero at account level 45, and then Vegas, the solo carry god in Doom Tower against multiple bosses, at account level 50. You can then use the beginner promo code MidGameTop to get your hands on Sigmund the High Shield when your account hits level 30. So that's 5 free Giga Chad champions in total to jumpstart your new account, man. It's an insane way to start off a fresh account, especially useful for new players if you feel like you kind of messed up your first account and are looking for a clean start. Alright man, so top 10 farmable free set in Raid. Number 1 is of course going to be the good old Speed set, farmed in the Dragon Dungeon alongside Lifesteal and Toxic sets, by the way. So some pretty good early game sets to get your hands on in the Dragon Dungeon if you're just getting started. But yeah, Speed is incredible. Speed is simply the best stat in the game, and so the Speed set giving plus 12% speed on a 2-piece is extremely good, and naturally, if you're equipping champs in a speed set, you probably want them to be quick, right? So you're looking for speed substat rolls on your speed pieces, with accuracy also being pretty good as well. Just because generally you want your debuffers in your teams to be fast as well, and to be attacking in before your damage dealers, and so yeah, speed and accuracy both good substat rolls on your speed pieces. Next up, we've got one of the best damage dealer sets in the game because of how accessible it is, and this is the Savage set. This is going to be dropping from the Fire Knight dungeon, which for a new player, for a beginner player, the Fire Knight dungeon is definitely one of the more difficult dungeons to progress in. You need to actually build a team that's somewhat specialized for the Fire Knight dungeon, for the challenge of that dungeon in order to take on the harder difficulties. But yeah, it's exceptionally good. It's a 4-piece, ignores 25% of enemy defense on attacks. So obviously this is your Nuka set. And just don't underestimate it, is my advice. Ignoring 25% of enemy defense is nothing to sniff at and boosts your damage massively. A quick side note as well is that, generally speaking, in the normal mode dungeons, if you're a newer player, the best stage you can be farming very, very early on in the game is going to be stage 10, which is going to give you 4 and 5-star gear, I believe, at quite an energy efficient rate. As you can see right here, you can see what levels of artifact you can be farming from any given stage. Stage 10 is just a very, very good one to farm for beginners in tournaments and stuff like that. The next milestone is generally going to be stage 16, where you can earn 4 to 6-star gear without making that leap from 14 energy up to 16 energy, as you can see right here. So stage 16 is another great stage. The stage that you're really aiming for, to be honest, as you're entering into the mid-game and stuff, is of course going to be farming stage 20, where the lowest gear level you can get is 5-star gear. 5 to 6-star for a cost of 16. Stage 20 is a great target to aim towards if you're getting started in Raid. Next up, and staying on the theme of damage dealer artifact sets, we of course have the Lethal set, which is a Doom Tower farmable set. Now, if you don't know and you're new to the game, the way that Doom Tower works is that every 30 days, the bosses in Doom Tower will rotate. There are 3 cycles in total, and in one of those Doom Tower rotations, the Dark Fae boss will be the end boss in Doom Tower. That is when you want to blast the hell out of Doom Tower and farm as much of that boss as you possibly can to farm these crafting materials so that you can craft lethal gear in the Forge. It's one of the best Nuka sets in the game. Almost definitely the best, readily farmable damage dealer set in the game. Gives crit rate plus 10%, helping you to hit that 100% crit rate that you're looking for on your big damage dealers, and has the same effect as the Savage set on top of that, ignoring 25% of enemy defense. The Lethal set is a fantastic, fantastic one to prioritize when the Dark Fae is the end boss of Doom Tower. Next up on our list, we have the Stun set. Now, this Stun set is a little bit niche as well, to be honest, but I think it's just a bit more widespread enough that, generally speaking, across all of your factions in Raid, it's good to have at least one rare or epic champion that's geared out in a stun set. It gives you an 18% chance to place a stun debuff on attacking enemies, or on dealing damage to enemies with that one champ, and so you want it equipped on something like a rare champion that's just spamming out a lot of area of effect attacks. A good example of this would of course be good old Banshee for the Undead Hordes. She's a rare champ. Mine is still super low level, but I will eventually build her up to just a level 50 and get her in a stun set, because basically all of her skills, I mean, we're going to be disabling her A3, forget the A3, but on her A1 she's got an attack all enemies, on the A2 she's got an attack all enemies, and so I'm just going to have her spam AoE attacks constantly in a stun set. That's her job, is just to provide a crazy amount of extra control in my Undead Hordes faction wars and in Undead secret rooms in the Doom Tower and stuff like that, man. And it's just going to be very, very effective and economical to build out in that stun set. And again, it's generally good to have at least one stun set champion for every faction, so the stun set is well worth holding on to. It is farmable in the Fire Knight dungeon. Next up, we've got the Cruel set, and this is of course acquirable from the Demon Lord clan boss, and it is one of the chief reasons that of course you want to be pushing as high up in difficulty as you possibly can into the Demon Lord clan boss, and why it's such a big priority, or part of the reason why it's such a big priority for early game players to be building out their clan boss teams with optimal champs, which we're going to be covering in a future video, by the way. The Cruel set gives you plus 15% attack, so it's specifically for attack scaling damage dealers, and also ignores 5% of enemy defense, which isn't much, but you know what? It's only a 2-piece set, which is great because it can be comboed up with the likes of a Savage set or whatever, and it's just very, very flexible and versatile as a result. So the Cruel set is great. As a kind of extra honorable mention alongside the Cruel set, I'll also go ahead and throw in the crit damage set here as well. I think this one's also farmed from Fire Knight, might be Dragon, I think it's Fire Knight. The crit damage set is also great for the same reason, right? It gives you plus 20% crit damage. It's only a 2 set as well, so it should probably make the list too, but I'll just throw it in alongside Cruel. Both very, very good sort of filler sets when building out your damage dealers. It sort of also goes without saying that with the Cruel set, while other damage dealers in the game, you can have like HP-based nukers and defense-based nukers and whatever. The Cruel set, because it's attack scaling, you're basically just looking for attack percentage, crit chance, crit damage on your Cruel gear, right? It's going to be for your attack-based nukers only. Right after the Cruel set, we have the Immortal set, which is also a 2-piece. It gives plus 15% health on a 2-piece and heals the champ by 3% for every 10. This is a great set to combo with the Regeneration set that we've already covered in this video as well. And this one also drops from Clan Boss. You're generally just looking for HP percentage on these pieces, and you're looking for speed, right? Because again, you're getting that heal by a percentage for every turn that the champ has, and so the faster the champ is in their Immortal gear, the more they're going to be triggering this heal, right? So speed and HP percentage on your Immortal pieces are generally the stats you're going to be looking for. Next up, we have Perception gear, and you're going to be, once again, crafting Perception gear in your Forge building, and you're going to be farming those crafting materials from your Faction Wars, right? That's why you're going to be spending your Faction Wars Crypt Keys every single day that you possibly can. Even if you're only farming the lower stages, it's going to be worth it, right? Perception gear is basically a combination-ish of accuracy gear and speed gear sort of rolled into one. It's also a 2-piece, and so it's very, very flexible and versatile. And frankly, perception gear is still commonly used in like endgame accounts, bro. Like, it's still crazy good just because of how flexible it is, and sort of it's a little bit self-explanatory, but yeah, you're looking for speed and accuracy on your perception gear. I'll throw that in there as well because I have with most of the sets so far, but yeah, those are the stats that you're also looking for. Perception gear is great. I'd even recommend that if you're a new player and you're a beginner player and you ever get the chance to craft the higher tiers of perception gear. So if you go into your perception gear and you can actually craft the 5 to 6 star perception gear, this is one of the sets that is probably worth going ahead and throwing your rank and rarity charms onto this as you craft it out. And you probably also want to go ahead and throw speed or accuracy charms on your perception gear pieces as you're crafting these out as well. Yeah, some good perception gear, especially in the early stages of your account, is going to last you forever. Okay, next up, and there's only 3 left now, so do make sure to let me know if you feel like I've missed any off of this list. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight the Reflex set. The Reflex set is awesome, again, on quite specific champs, but not that specific, you know? It's almost like it's like an adaptation of the Relentless set, except instead of getting an extra 10, you have a much higher chance, a 40% chance to reduce a random skill's cooldown. The Reflex set is fantastic on champions with, honestly, a pretty crappy A1, but just a couple of very, very good skills that you want to be spamming as much as humanly possible. Geomancer is another example of a champ that's fantastic in a Reflex set, because frankly, most of the time, you just want to go ahead and disable his A2 when setting up your team's AI, and you just want him spamming the A3 as much as humanly possible. If you've only got him spamming the A3 over and over again, then the Reflex set is always going to trigger on reducing the cooldown of the A3, if that makes sense. So it's going to make this a much more spammable skill, and that is exactly what you want in trying to max out your Geomancer's damage into something like Hydra. You can farm your Reflex gear in the Ice Golems dungeon, and honestly, unlike some of the other sets that we've covered in this list so far, there are a lot of stats that can work out very, very nicely for Reflex gear. You might want to get some, well, they're all going to want speed. Speed is like universally just an awesome stat to have on your Reflex pieces just overall, but if you've got some Reflex gear that has speed and rolls into a lot of crit rate, for example, you can use Reflex gear on a nuker that likes Reflex sets. Likewise, you can just go for speed and accuracy and put them on more of a support style champion. There's really a lot of ways that you can kind of slice the cake when it comes to your Reflex gear, man. It's just very, very versatile, kind of similar to Relentless. Next up, and sticking to the Ice Golems dungeon, we have the Cursed set. And you know what? I'm going to cover the Cursed set and the Provoke set, which is also farmed in Ice Golems dungeon, in the same kind of entry here into this list, because both the Provoke set, the Provoke set gives you a 30% chance to place a Provoke debuff, and the Curse set gives you a 50% chance to place a Hex debuff for a couple of turns. These sets both kind of serve a similar purpose, usually in Hydra teams, but not always. You can use these sets elsewhere as well, but kind of similar to a Toxic set that we touched on a little bit later on. They kind of have these niche edge case uses where you can sort of plug a gap in one of your teams into Hydra, for example, where you just don't have a very reliable Provoke on one of your 3 Hydra teams. You can go ahead and throw a Provoke set on somebody who's spamming out, you know, AoE attacks. and that can just make the Provoke land much more reliably on that pesky Head of Decay. And similarly, if you don't have any champions that are placing Hex debuff across the entire enemy team, then you can slam your Kest set on something like a support champion that's just spamming out a whole lot of AoE attacks as well, and they can be your Hex debuffer, you know. So I think both of these sets serve a similar-ish purpose and are both well worth collecting at least 1 or 2 good sets of each. And last but definitely not least, we have the good old, or should I say rather new actually, Pinpoint set. This is a variable set, meaning you can equip 1 or 2 pieces of Pinpoint and get some set bonuses. You can also go all the way up to 9 Pinpoint set pieces. This is farmable in the event dungeon, which is not always open. At the time I'm shooting this video, it's got a couple of weeks left where you can actually farm this event dungeon. This is currently what it looks like right here, where Odin is our end boss in this dungeon. But to be honest, the main reason I think that this is one of the best farmable sets in the game, at least while that event dungeon is active, is because of how versatile it is, right? And unlike all of the other accessory artifact sets like Stone Skin and Protection and Slayer and you know, Feral, all of these pieces that are really hard to get your hands on, you can get your hands on quite a lot of Pinpoint accessory items from farming this dungeon, which, dude, as a newer account, as a beginner player, as someone who's in the first 6 months of their raid account, this is an absolute luxury, boys. Being able to literally just equip like 1 or 2 Pinpoint accessories, a ring and an amulet, or a ring and a banner, it's 20 accuracy and 10% speed. That's insanely good. Again, especially if your account is actually still quite in its early stages. Then, of course, Pinpoint never stops being good as well. If you want to stack up like 6 pieces on one of your champs, then you get 2 intercept stacks on that champ, and so you can use Pinpoint as kind of like almost like a budget Stone Skin option to give your champs some protection from enemy debuffs in things like Arena, and so it will find some future use as well. But honestly, just for the sheer versatility of Pinpoint accessories, I think they're absolutely fantastic and totally well worth adding onto this list. And there you have it, man. 10 easily farmable sets that are well worth prioritizing, especially if you're like a free-to-play style player, as well as some honorable mentions as well. I know some people are going to point out the fact that, oh, but you can get some really sweet artifact gear from things like Live Arena and you know, from Clan Siege, the Feral set and stuff like that. Yeah, those are like technically free to get your hands on, but at the same time, you get them so infrequently that it feels like a little bit of a cop-out to call those farmable, you know? Now, it might turn out that the joke's on me if the event dungeon that gives you the Pinpoint gear just doesn't open again for like the next 4 months. I'll be sitting here thinking, oh, for God's sake, like this video's aged like fruit, you know? That would suck quite a bit, so I hope that doesn't happen and that the event dungeon does stick around and make, you know, reappearances quite often in the near future. But all of that said, man, if you feel I did miss any sweet farmable gear sets in Raid, especially that the newer players in the first like 6 months of their account should be looking to farm up, please do let us know down below in the comments. And alright, man, as always, if you're looking to start off a new Raid account, then make sure to do so by first signing out of Plarium Player, then clicking on my beginner promo link down below at the top of the video description to start off your fresh new account with free 4 epic champions, man. Then you can input the beginner promo code MidGameTop to get your hands on Sigmund the High Shield as well at account level 30. It's an incredible way to start off your new Alt Raid account. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you all did enjoy this one, and I might catch all of you all just a tad bit later, man.